What's up, friends? I read this cool article about why there are fewer serial killers now than there used to be, and I thought it touched upon a lot of interesting topics, as well as just crime in general, right? So the amount of serial killers that we've had over the last 50 years has declined rapidly. The golden age of serial killers was the 70s and 80s. In fact, that was around the time when the term was coined by the FBI and their behavioral analysis department. There was around 300 known active serial killers at the time in the 80s. Then there was around 250 a decade later, and now they think there's around 50, right? There's been a multitude of debates as to why there's a decline in serial killers, right? Here's a chart I could just show you visually. But at the same time, another thing I'll bring up, there's just been a decline in violent crime anyway, in general, right, since 1990. At that time, you had politicians like our current president, Joe Biden, talking about super predators. You had people like Rudy Giuliani that were like, I need to clean up New York City. Bill Clinton was saying like, hey, we might reduce crime, reduce the rate of increasing crime, but maybe not reduce crime at all, when all of a sudden there was like a dramatic plummet. And so in this article, they talk about a few of the things that have definitely helped participate in the reduction of some of this crime, right? So one of the first things is technology, right? Technology rules our world. So the advent of DNA analysis, better fingerprinting analysis, ring cameras, surveillance, like it is hard to get away with murder. It's hard to get away with a lot of crimes, but especially if you're the type of person that's going to continue to commit multiple violent actions, right? Like, and to do it in a clean way, it is quite difficult. And if we do see that nowadays, our first response is, why did it take so long to get them, right? And so that is one of the major factors in the decrease in crime. You also have better policing methods. Everybody's getting better at what they do. And so you have police officers that are learning from the past and previous mistakes that are figuring out, hey, how can we improve upon this? Also, at the same time, you have more people that are in prison than ever before. And I'm not saying this is necessarily a good thing. The real increase that happened was around 1979, which was the start of the war on drugs, right? So sometimes I wonder how many new criminals there are, or how many people that just got sucked into the drug game. But there's a good chance that people that may have been serial killers, that may have become super violent actors, ended up becoming arrested, right? And here's the jump in incarceration. If you see homicide, there was a 300% increase in the amount of killers that we put back into jail. What made these killers killers? The behavioral department, they brought up like three factors at the FBI. They talked about bedwetters, for some reason, tended to be at risk. People that violently hurt animals as kids is a huge, huge risk. People that played with fire, if you have all three of those, it's kind of like a little dangerous combination. At the same time, growing up in a neglectful household, right? You grow up in a neglectful household, you're not guided properly, people are not pushing you in the right direction, you can end up becoming one of the worst, right, in our society. Some people even brought up factors like gas and lead, right? Lead in our gas and lead paint and kids eating it and chemically us changing as people to become killers. In fact, there was a famous, one of the first school shootings. It was a guy, a sniper. He went up into the Texas clock tower at the University of Texas and he started shooting people, picking people off. And before that, before he started killing random people, he killed his mom. But he also wrote a note and he said, please analyze my brain. And after they finally got to him and killed him and they analyzed his brain, they found a tumor in his head, right? And so part of me is wondering, like, we want to find simple answers as to why crime exists or why crime is being reduced, when the reality is, like, the situation is, like, so much more complex than we give it. A lot of times it's like the same thing, like I hear people blaming, like, the president for gas prices. He's one wave in the ocean. Right? It's also us all using so much gas, corporations understanding that they can make more money off of selling gas. Some of our potential geopolitical enemies like Saudi Arabia, well, not Saudi Arabia, they're not their enemy, but they want to make more money, but like Russia, Venezuela, maybe hoarding some of the gas in a way to create artificial demand issues, right? All of these things can exist. Some people want to take credit, though. Politicians want to take credit. Rudy Giuliani wants to take credit for cleaning things up. Police officers want to take credit for cleaning things up. Prison officials want to take credit for cleaning things up. Sometimes it could be regular people, too, right? Bogota in the 90s was the most dangerous city in the world. Now their murder rate is less than what was happening in Washington, D.C. And some people point out to having more public parks, right? Lighting, so people can be out and about. If you have a whole bunch of grandmas outside and kids playing, it becomes a lot more difficult for some mugger to come in and mess with somebody, or some killer to shoot somebody in broad public, right? And so the idea of policing and the idea of like how to reduce crime, I think we need to change our perspective a little bit. And the first book that ever changed my perspective on crime and how to reduce crime was Freakonomics. So this guy, Stephen Levitt, and his partner, Stephen Dubner, they wrote this book as economists, not hippie liberals, not like conservative, tough on crime people, as economists, understanding what is driving people to commit crimes and what are some, and they talk about a lot of things, not just crimes, but there was one particular article about why was it that this huge decline in crime happened, right? But they wanted to look at it from the angle of economics, right? Like, what is the behavior that changed? And they noticed some states in America had an earlier decline than other states. They also started realizing what types of people were most at risk to commit crimes. And the answer that they came up with for the biggest reason why there was a decline in crime, right? Some of it was policing, some of it was public policy, some of it was putting people in prison. But the largest effect that they said was abortion. 20 years earlier, Roe versus Wade passed, right, in the early 70s, where now abortion was legalized and the access was easier for people to get rid of unwanted children. The key word being unwanted. Those kids that would have been unwanted kids, that would have grown up in neglectful environments, were more likely to commit crime. Now, this topic scares people and hates people because they'd be like, how dare you say these babies would have committed crime? And how dare you say the way to a safer society is potentially killing children? People commit crimes, right? And like these economists, I'm trying to look at things from above. And if you're at risk for committing crimes, then we need to understand why those people are potentially at risk. Now, one of the things about abortion is interesting. A lot of the women that get abortions, they're not getting abortions and then never having kids. They're getting abortions and they're having kids later on in life when they're better prepared to have kids, right? And this is the big difference. They have more proper guidance. And that guidance and that love and that better economic standing may have a more profound impact on reducing crime than anything else we're investing money in to this day. I hated the term defund the police. I thought it was stupid, but I do like the idea of us being creative in ways to reduce crime. I thought the idea of an EMT, right, was something that was old, like 150 years ago, the same way that it existed with like fire departments, but that's not the case. EMTs started to arise in the late 60s. And prior to that, it was police officers that would have to drive health victims to the hospital. And a lot of times they would take their time to get there, or maybe there was some racial issues involved, where also in the 60s, this was the time of the Vietnam War. And a lot of people came back from that war with combat experience and medical experience, like dealing with wounds and traumatic injuries. And they were like, yo, I could pick somebody up and bring them to the hospital. And at that time, the police were super upset and they would try to arrest those people bringing other people to the hospital. But then studies were done, data was shown, and they were like, hey, these people are actually saving a lot of lives, and these people are healthier now because of it. What I'm trying to say is crime, serial killers, murder, all of these things are consequences of issues in our society. And to fix them, the answers are not necessarily easy, but they may be multifaceted. And we have to look at crime from a holistic viewpoint. Till then, cheers.